Gurur Brahma, Gurur Vishnu, Gurur Devo Maheshwaraha, Gurureva Param Brahma, Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Chinmayam Vyapyat Sarvam, Trailokyam Sacharacharam, Tatpadam Darshitam Yena, Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Tvameva Mata Chapita, Tvameva Tvameva bandhushcha sakha tvameva Tvameva vedya dravinam Tvameva Tvameva sarvam mama deva deva Tvameva sarvam Mama Deva Deva. Jai Guru. Ya Devi Sarva Bhuteshu Matra Rupena Sanstita Namastasyai 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 Namo Namaha. Ya Devi Sarva Bhuteshu Shakti Rupena Sanstita Namastasyai 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 Namo Namaha. Ya Devi Sarva Bhuteshu Buddhi Rupena Sanstita Namastasyai 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 Namo Namaha. Ya Devi Sarva Bhuteshu Lakshmi Rupena Sanstita Namastasyai 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 Namo Namaha. My voice is scratchy tonight. We have smoke. Poke this white box. I don't shut everything off. Can you all hear me and see me?
Yes.
Yes.
So we are, I think Mark said, chapter 14, verse 24. Is that correct?
Yes, that's it.
Can you help us out, please, Ganesh? I think you're muted.
Yeah. Etehi chakshusha bhavascha shurvi kritimatrakaha na chakshusa shadam shatonya drishyamasti kvachit bahihi. These visual objects are surely mere transformations of the faculty of sight. There is no object outside anywhere other than what depends on sight to be visible, even in part.
Yes. So here is where, for many of us, Vedanta and this text, which is part of the Tantra schools, can be problematic for people. The idea here is that none of the visual objects are outside of consciousness. easiest way to understand this always is macrocosm, microcosm. You are the God of your dream. In the dream state, you have the dream body. In the dream body, there's the locus of perception. In the dream, there's a dream ego, you identified with the dream body, and you see objects outside of you in the dream. But upon awakening, it's very clear that the dream objects are not really exterior to consciousness, to what we would call chitta, the stuff of mind, or chaitanya, consciousness as in states of consciousness. Not chit, the absolute, but chaitanya. Macrocosmically, all this comes about in the same way. Now, there is no Ishvara out there who's creating this world at us. And this is a very subtle concept. Just like you have a subtle body of thoughts and feelings, the infinite has a subtle body, the total mind, which we call Hiranya Dharma. In Mandukya, we call the waking state Vishwa or Vaishwanara. We call the subtle state, thoughts and feelings, Taijasa. Macrocosmically, Hiranya Garbha, the total mind, literally the golden egg. The thing to understand is this projection of the world coming about in the same manner in which we individually project the dream state is, for want of a better word, a group effort. Every being in creation, through its own limited use of the law of Sankalpa, is to some degree contributing to what we see as the Mahat, the total creation. So actually, each one of us has a different perception of the phenomenal world than the person next to us. We think we're all seeing an objective world, but it's not so objective. Now, let me give you an example. I was talking with a fellow and he says, Jim, I always tell the truth and it always gets me in trouble. For example, I was in the supermarket the other day and there was a woman in front of me and I said, you have a fat ass. And she turned around and wanted to hit me. I couldn't help it. I had to tell the truth. And I said to him, well, did she have a nice pair of shoes? I don't know. I didn't see them. What about the color of her dress? Was it complementary to her complexion? Do you know if she had any nice jewelry on? Was she wearing maybe a beautiful scarf? So you see, what he thought was the truth, simply what he focused on, was much more to just the physical appearance of this woman. Now, when we get to people's behaviors, classic thing is how in America we seem to have two views of the world, a red view and a blue view, a conservative view and a progressive view. You listen to Fox News, you listen to MSNBC. The same world events are going on, but they are seen so differently. What a yogi wants to understand is that all that he sees is just his own stupid opinions. We all have it. We all have a viewpoint, a point from which we view. But also, it has inherent bias, inherent prejudice, inherent opinion, inherent sanskaras, impressions from the past. So the yogi learns to not take his own mind quite so seriously. Now, the topic under discussion here, remember we're back to our discussion between Mahasena and the Muniputra, the son of the sage. What's the difference between the world that was seen inside the Kanda mountain and the world that's seen outside? That it is all just consciousness appearing as name and form is the same. Just like whatever happens in the dream, it doesn't touch you, the waker. Whatever happens in this phenomenal waking state world never touches you, Supreme Self. So in Mandukya Upanishad, in the second chapter of Gaudapada's Karika, his great gloss, that second chapter is titled Vaidhatya, falseness. Fourth Karika, he basically says, the phenomenal world is quite unreal, and the proof of its unreality is you can see it. If you can see it, it's imagination. So I'm working long distance with a comparatively new student, really wonderful fellow. And he's an Episcopal priest. He writes me an email and says, Jim, in my meditation, and when I'm going to sleep, I keep seeing this blue light, I assume that's a good thing. How frequently do we get caught up in phenomena? And another student was saying, oh, my crown chakra is beginning to buzz. I think it's opening and I'm going to get enlightened. Or, oh, my chakras are buzzing. My kundalini is rising. I'm not saying these phenomena aren't happening. We do not resist them. You notice them. Most important thing to understand. Does it have a beginning and an end? Does it have qualities and characteristics? Does it occur in time and space? Most importantly, is it objectively known? If it is, no matter how mundane or sublime, it is Namarupa, name and form. The mud is made into a clay pot, a clay jar, a clay vase, a clay plate, a clay bowl. It's all just mud. All that changes is nama rupa. All this is nothing but consciousness appearing as name and form. How did it get here? Sankalpa. Whose? God. Not manifesting the world at us and to us, but as us and through us. Any thoughts and questions about this?
Jim, I have a question.
Please.
Just now you were talking about things which have a beginning and an end and have characteristics and so on, and therefore they are part of not what one is. From a very empirical first-person point of view, how would we talk about the little voice in the head, which sort of controls the narrative of all our waking state, has a continuity, and just seems inseparable?
Well, it's just another form of mind. The inner dialogue that goes by. It's a subtle form of vach, speech. That's all it is.
But it doesn't seem to have a beginning and an end. I mean, it seems to always persist. It's sort of changing in form, but it's there.
You need to meditate more.
Mm.
It does quieten down. It does stop.
That I agree. But I mean, since it re-emerges, should I call it a stop or a pause?
In the end, so what? Our problem comes when we take that inner dialogue as truth. The best example I can use, it's like traffic. The traffic just goes by. You know, on Sunday afternoons before Gita class, some motorcycle club comes around and they rev their motorcycles and ride up and down Grand Avenue. And it stops. Sometimes it's the kids with their cars, vroom, 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 they're doing sideshows, I think they call them. You hear screeching and stuff like that. Or in the middle of the afternoon, the sound of the traffic is just constant. So all these different forms of the sounds of the traffic are like the different forms of the thoughts inside. Now, if I can't sleep very well and I'm up at, say, 3 or 4 in the morning, frequently I'll come in, sit and meditate. It's completely silent. Maybe one car will go by. But the point is, you are not this flow of thought. This flow of thought is called buddhi, the intellect. It thickens, it thins, you have virtuous thoughts, you have vicious thoughts. Sometimes there's a whole bunch of them. Sometimes it thins. But it's just more nama-rupa, just a subtle name and form. Does that make it a little clearer, Uday?
Yes, Jim. Thank you.
I don't know if it was helpful.
No, it is. I mean, it is something which, it's something to work on more than anything.
Swamiji used to tell this story about a fellow who went to the ocean and he found a bottle and he rubbed the bottle and out came a genie. And this was a terrible genie. He said, If you do not give me something to do, I'm going to eat you. So the guy says, build me a palace. So in a trice, the genie builds him a palace. And then he goes, and says, get me $1 billion in gold. Genie brings him the gold and goes, so he keeps giving him tasks and he's pretty concerned. And then finally he has an idea. He tells the genie, all right, I want you to create a pole. And I want you to climb up the pole and then climb down the pole. And then climb up the pole and climb down the pole. And you do that until I need you to create something for me. And the genie did not eat him. So the genie is the mind. The genie is that interior dialogue. And if we don't give it something to do, it usually wants to eat us. So what's the pole and the genie going up and down the pole? Japa.
Right.
Om Namah Shivaya, Om Namah Shivaya, Om Namah Shivaya, Om Namah Shivaya. If your mind is going to have a dialogue, if it's going to have a flow of thought, chant the name of the Lord. Then it's busy with that and it won't eat you. What am I going to do about tomorrow? Oh, I messed up so bad on that. I'm a terrible person. All those afflicting thoughts, that's the genie eating us. Oh, I regret the past. How could I have possibly done that? Oh, I wish I could do that over again. Oh, I'm so depressed. I'm so sad. I'm so frightened about the future. Till you give the genie something to do. One of my favorite Swamiji stories. All right, next
Very
verse. It's a very quiet verse, Ganesh.
Yatha pitta pradushtasho bahihi pitam prapashyati yatha taimiriko nyastu pashyate kam dvidha sthitam evam vichitra dushtakshaha pashyanti vividham jagat. As one whose eye or vision is vitiated by bile, sees yellow outside, as another having a disease of the eye called chimera, sees one object existing in two parts or appearing as two. So, persons having eyes or vision vitiated in various ways see the world diversely.
Yes, so here he's talking about the simple phenomenon how the health or disease of the eye changes what we see. I just had cataract surgery in my left eye a month ago. I didn't realize that it was like looking through a dirty window. Now it's gone. The colors are bright again. Amazing. Or a person who has double vision. I used to have double vision when I got drunk. Close one eye when you're driving home from the bar. Don't you guys do that? But the condition of the eyes conditions what we see. the condition of the mind with its virtuous or vicious thoughts, its fears, its loves, creates what we see in the world. Next verse.
अस्ति पूर्वसमुद्रस्य मध्ये कारण्डकाह्वयः दीपस्तत्र जना भवान् रक्तान् पश्यन्ति वै सदा. There is an island called Karandaka in the middle of the Eastern Ocean. There, people indeed see objects always as red.
See objects always what?
As red.
Oh, okay. So he's just going to riff on this idea that various people see things in various ways. And of course, the metaphor is our mindset creates how we see the world. Is democracy a good form of government? Vast parts of the world would not say so. Does Sharia law create a more peaceful, harmonious society? Many people in the world would say so. Others would say not. Going on.
एवं रमणकद्वीपे सदा पश्यन्ति वै जनाः व्यत्यस्तमूर्ध्वाधरतो निखिलं भावमण्डलम्. Thus, in the island of Ramanaka, people always see the entire multitude of objects inverted, with the upper part being lower, and vice versa.
So in this particular island, everything's upside down. Actually, the truth is, we do see the world upside down. The images hit the lens, which inverts them. So the image that hits the retina is upside down. The brain then turns it right side up. Isn't that right, Dr. Mark?
Yeah, I believe that's true.
Yeah. My mind reinterprets an image. Next verse.
एवं अन्येषु द्वीपेषु विविधं भावमण्डलं जना नेत्रस्वभावेन पश्यन्ति खलु सर्वदा. Thus, in other islands, people verily see the multitude of objects, always variously due to the natural constitution of their eyes.
So the idea here is, in an exoteric way, the condition of the eye affects how we see the world. The deeper meaning is the condition of my mind affects how I see the world. Now, real life example. I have a friend who is vaccine resistant and hesitant. And we've had many conversations, and he keeps sending me all these articles and keeps finding things on the web about what's bad about the vaccines, what's bad about this, and can't trust this person. And these person are only in it for the money and stuff like that. And they're trying to, you know, it's conspiracy theory, conspiracy theory, conspiracy theory. And finally I said to him, we'll call him X. X, I don't live in your world. In my world, God's in charge. I live in a beneficent world. that conspires for my well-being if I let it. In my world, I trust God. And because I trust God, I start off by trusting everyone. Every once in a while, someone betrays that trust. Okay, I can get over that. But that's very different than starting from a position of mistrust. I'm another person. Every time he gets on the bus, he gets into a fight. I get on the bus. For some reason, I always run into people and we talk about God. What's the difference? What's the difference? In my mind, I live in a different world than these people. I'm living my world. It's nice. Oh, Jim, you have to be realistic. Oh, I'm very realistic. Because I know there is no world out there that's solid and real. There's only Chaitanya, states of consciousness. All that's out there. You choose. Next verse.
Tatra tesham nyanyatha tu drishyate tasya tesham anyatha tu drishyate yadi kutrachit netram susadhyaushadhena pashyanti pragvadevahi. There, if anything, anywhere is seen by them otherwise than is described, they indeed see as before, having perfectly cured their eyes or vision by medicine.
So if we get the physical medicine, our eyes can be cured. We don't have double vision. I can get my cataract operated on. But you can also get a cure to your mental vision. How do we get these negative attitudes that create the way we see the world? We were fed them as kids. We were fed them by our society. And through repetition, they become concretized and they appear real. The corollary to the law of sankalpa, whatever you look at, you're going to think about. Whatever you look at repeatedly, you're going to think about repeatedly. Repeated thought becomes habituated thought. Habituated thought sinks into the unconscious and becomes the law of my life. You choose. Behold the divinity ever beholding you. Or behold the dust, and you will become dust. You choose. Now, one of the neat things about the law of sankalpa is it has a safety valve in it. most of the people who run around with negative thinking and hate-filled thinking and stuff like that, thank God, they don't believe that their minds are very powerful. So they use the law to disempower the law for themselves, because it'd be a lot more wreckage in the world if they really believed their minds had power. But as yogis, you can take responsibility for the content of your intentions. Kali Om found this sutra in the Yoga Sutras. I can't remember the Sanskrit tonight. I have just started to memorize it. It's 2.36. And we were talking at one point about satyam and its importance. That's one of the yamas and niyamas from the Yoga Sutras. And it means truthfulness, integrity, authenticity. That sutra says, for the person who practices satyam, their word manifests, their intention manifests. That very brief sutra, this whole teaching is encapsulated. Next verse.
Atastu chakshusha yavad drishyate jagati tale tavad bhavet chakshushoṃ pitavat pitta chakshusha. Therefore, as much as is seen on the surface of the earth by the eyes, so much should be a part belonging to the faculty of vision itself, like yellow color of objects for one with yellow eyes due to jaundice.
So here he's saying that it's the nature of the eye that determines what you see. We could take it to its deeper meaning. It's the nature of the mind that determines what we perceive. So, as a yogi, you can meditate your 20 minutes twice a day, maybe a little bit longer. But if the rest of the time you're awake, you're worrying, you're fearful, you're regretting, you're full of resentment. You know, you can tell when you have a resentment, you are having a conversation with someone who's not in the room. I see them, I'm going to tell them. Stop it. Because it has power. Oh, Jim, I just can't forgive. I'm so hurt by this person. What should I do? Pray for them every day. But I don't feel it. I don't care. Start by saying the words. Bless this person every day. You don't have to feel it. You don't have to believe it. Start by saying the words. And see what happens. All is well. Let that be your sankalpa. I live and I move and I have my being. God's smart. God's in charge. I think go let him. A nice short prayer. All these are intentions that change our mental vision. Next verse.
Evam घ्राणान्द्रियाणां च गन्धाद्योऽपि एवं घ्राणान्द्रियाणाम् अंशा गन्धादयोऽपि मानसाश्च मनोमात्र तथैव अखिलजगताः क्रमोऽप्यक्षस्वभावोत्तस्थः किञ्चित् बहिर्नहि. Thus even smell and others are indeed parts of the senses of smell and the rest. Mental objects are mere mind or thoughts. All objects of the world are merely so. Even the
I'm sorry, go on.
Even the course of things arises out of the inherent properties of the sense organs. Therefore, nothing is indeed outside.
Yes. So he has gone through this example of sight, and then he says you can use smell, go through all the rest of the senses. The bottom line is the senses are just externalizations of the mind. Everything is mind. Everything is the play of mind. It's not bad. It's just not real. I love to go to the symphony. One of my favorite symphonies is Beethoven's Third Symphony. Second movement is so sad. It's a funeral march in a minor key. The music is sad, and I love it. If you've ever been present when someone transitions and leaves the body, the loss is sad, but the experience is so beautiful. See it for what it is. Nobody dies. Now, this is advanced teaching for us yogis. Don't go out on the street and say, oh, I'm not worried at all about Afghanistan. Nobody dies. That's cruel. Krishna is very clear. We do not unsettle the mind of the ignorant with the truth. Be very judicious. But what you can do, if someone is near you and they're grieving or they're upset, just tune up your mind and hold what I call sacred space. With your intention, your sankalpa. that this sacred space has a healing property. You find out if it isn't transformative. If you're caught up in the world, along with everybody else, you're useless. You don't have to say anything. You be that sacred space that knows right where the trouble seems to be. There God is. All is Maya, all is bliss. Sarvam Kalvidam Brahma, all this is verily Brahma. What is Brahman? Chidananda Rupa. I am of the form of this consciousness. So is all this. Next verse.
Shrunurajan bahiriti yalloke bhati kevalam tadadyam sarva jagatam jagat chitrasya bhittivat. King, listen, that which is appearing in the world as wholly external is the beginning of all the worlds and is like the screen, the picture of the world.
So here the Bhuniputra is saying, King, talking to Mahasena, all that you're seeing is like a painting on a screen or lights on something. The screen in the movie theater. What's there is consciousness. Going on.
Tasya bahyasya vaktavyam apadanam dhruvam nano shariram syadapadanam netarad bhavitum shamam. But a fixed entity from which it is taken away has to be certainly declared for that external world. The body should be such an entity from which the world is removed to make it external. Nothing else is appropriate to become that entity.
Read that again. I'm not sure I understood what he said.
But a fixed entity from which it is taken away has to be certainly declared for that external world. The body should be such an entity from which the world is removed to make it external. Nothing else is appropriate to become that entity.
Oh, so it's polemical. What he's saying, if the world were really external and outside, then the body should be taken outside it's part of the external. So it can't be outside the body and the body be part of the outside at the same time. That's what he's driving at. Going on.
Tasyapi bahirabhasad apadanam katham nutat parvatat bahirityukte parvato na bahirbhavet yatha khato bhasate hi pahistat tadvacha tirakam. On account of the appearance of even that body externally, how can that be an entity from which the world is removed? To call it external. When it is set outside the mountain cannot be outside. As a pot indeed appears outside in that manner, the body does.
Now, I didn't quite hear your voice. You were saying something about the mountain. Read the whole thing again, please.
On account of the appearance of even that body externally, how can that be an entity from which the world is removed? To call it external. When it is set outside the mountain cannot be outside. As a pot indeed appears outside, in that manner the body does.
So how can the external world be outside of the body when the body itself is seen as an object? When you were a child, you had the little body, you went through adolescence, the body changed, you're an adult, the body is changed again. You know the body the way you know a pot. So the phenomenal world cannot be external to the body because the body is part of the external world, which I illumine. That's like saying, when I'm in the dream, is the dream world external to the dream body? No, both the dream body and the dream world are interior to my mind. Going on.
Bhasakad pahirityevam vaktum vapina sambhavet deepa surya lokabahihi gatanam nahi bhasanam atastu bhasakasyanta bhasyam astiti yujyate. It is also not possible to say that it is outside the illuminator, because there is no appearance of things which have gone outside the light of a lamp or the sun. Therefore, it is right to say that the illuminated is within the illuminator.
So the idea here is if someone thinks, well, the phenomenal world is outside of awareness. And the question is, if it's outside of awareness, then how is it even known? Now, we can get kind of really geeky in the science here. So do the galaxies and things that have never been perceived by a human being, do they exist because we can't see them? And we're missing the idea. They are still within the consciousness of the infinite. They are in Krishna's consciousness. I get this feed on my Facebook, and I don't know what it's about, but it keeps trying to tell me about this science that the phenomenal world, the physical world, it's all about physics, and they have like springs and things like that. Its very existence is based on some universal consciousness. It's supposed to be some scientific thing. I haven't bothered to listen to it at all. But is science getting close to the Vedanta? I'm not a scientist. I don't know. But what Vedanta says, all phenomena is interior to consciousness, which is infinite and universal. Going on.
Bhasakam tunu dehadihi bhasyatvat parvatadivat na sarvatha yattu bhasyam bhasakam tadhiyujyate. But the illuminator cannot be the body and the like, since they are of the nature of the illuminated, like mountains and others. That alone can be the illuminator, which on the contrary is not at all illuminated.
So, just like the sun illuminates all the things on the planet, but itself is not illuminated by anything here, so also awareness is that by which everything is known. How is awareness known? Awareness is not known as an object by another awareness. Yet, awareness is self-evident. Are you? Who sees the phone? I do. That's yourself. How do you know you are you? And it's a kind of knowing completely different than the knowing of objects. Don't believe me. You look and find out. Next verse.
Bhasakasyapi bhasyatve bhasakasyan avasthitihi svasyaiva bhasakastvam cha bhasyatvam nahi yujyate. Then there is the nature of the illuminated, even for the illuminator. There would be the absence of finality due to an endless series of causes and effects, which is a fault of reasoning. It is not surely possible for a thing to have in itself the nature of the illuminated and the nature of the illuminator. If the illuminator is also considered to be the illuminated, note, if the illuminator is also considered to be the illuminated, the question, by which is that illuminator illuminated, would arise. This series would go on unendingly without conclusion.
So I see the objects. Is there a consciousness that sees me? Then what's the consciousness that sees the consciousness that sees me? And where is there a consciousness that sees the consciousness that sees the consciousness that sees me, that sees the objects? It's a regression ad infinitum. And anyway, that's not our experience. We see the world with the triple factor, knower, knowing, and known. But in terms of myself, it is self-evident, self-shining, self-effulgent. I know that I am. I never doubt it. But I'm not an object. I'm not in meditation. Oh, there's the self going by. No. What is that by which everything is known, without which nothing can be known, beyond which there is nothing to know? The buck stops with me, philosophically. It is the end of knowledge. Veda anta, Vedanta. Next one.
Atastu bhasakam shuddham bhasakaikasvarupakam tacca bharupamevaiha purnam ekarasatmakam. Therefore, the illuminator is pure and one, is pure and one, and is of the nature of the illuminator alone. That also is only of the nature of light, full and consisting of one essence here in the world.
So the ground of being by which everything is known, always experienced as the self in every being, is one. Its nature is Sat. It exists. Chit. It is sentience itself. Ananda. Bliss. Absolute. Space and time occur in it. It transcends space and time, but it also pervades space and time. So every point in the space-time continuum, vijnana ghanam, a homogeneous mass of consciousness. This whole world is just suspended in it. Uday may remember these. I don't know how long you've been teaching, but back in the old-timey days when I was teaching, we had these projections you'd have in class. You either projected on a screen or a wall, and you had these transparencies. They were like images, and it was on clear plastic. Remember those?
Oh, yes, very much.
Yeah, that's the whole universe. It's just a transparency suspended in consciousness. It's all it is. You practically stick your hand through it. And the more you thin your mind, the more diaphanous the world becomes. Stop the mind and the world disappears. Thicken the mind and your world becomes very concrete. How do you thin the mind? Get out of it. Quit believing your mind. That turns the frequency and the volume down. Next verse. How many more in this chapter? Are we getting close to the end, Ganesh?
We have a lot.
Okay. We've got about another 5 minutes or so.
Yeah, we have, I don't know, many.
Okay, no problem.
Tena vyapta deshakala bhasanattasya purnata abharupasya cha bhanat bharupaikarasam. Space and time are pervaded by that illuminator, which is pure light, on account of its shining everywhere, and hence its fullness is proved. On account of the non-appearance of a thing which is not of the nature of light, that is indeed the one essence of the nature of light.
Yes, so here he's riffing on what I just talked about. So light here, the great metaphor for consciousness itself. It pervades everything, just like you pervade the dream individually. There's no place in your dream where there's a little black hole where your mind is not Oh, I'm driving my car up the mountain in my dream, and I look to the right, and oh, there's a hole in the dream. No mind there. Doesn't happen. So also in Ishvara's dream, a homogeneous mass of consciousness. Remember when I bring out the crystal ball, a homogeneous mass of stone, but you can see images in it. If I move my head, you see the head move upside down in the stone, but the stone does not move. I can't saw open the stone and pull out the upside down gem. Are there images in the stone? Well, kind of yes and kind of no. They're certainly seen, but they're not really there. So all this. Now, as we move later in the text, because this is a tantric text, we're going to come up with the doctrine of spanda. Spanda means vibration, oscillation. In those particular schools, they posit, well, actually consciousness vibrates a little bit, and that's what makes the world appear. The Advaita Vedantins say, no, it does not vibrate at all, it's still. It's the illusory power of Maya. Don't get caught up in these subtle and purely philosophical distinctions. It's not important to our practice. What's important is to know that what I see as the world is consciousness appearing as name and form. God does not create the world at us and to us, but imagines it as us and through us. To some degree, I participate in the divine process of this world, which is always happening in the now, the now, the now. Even my ideas of cause and effect are just ideas that occur in the now. I got in the car and I drove to work. But right now, in the now, I'm at work. In the now, I'm at work. The memory that I got in the car, that's in the now. There is no real past. Only the now. Which is ever changing. It's a lovely light show. Transparency on cellophane. Next verse.
Antar bahirva yat kinchid bharupodha rasam sthitam atastanna padanam syat shringasyeva hi parvataha. Whatever exists inside or outside is situated in the interior of that which is the nature of light. Therefore, that light cannot be a thing from which the so-called internal and external things can be removed. Just as a mountain cannot be a thing from which the summit can be removed. No, the mountain cannot be the apadana for the summit. The light cannot be the apadana for the world. Apadana being a thing from which another is removed, the thing being taken away being considered external to the former.
So the idea here is you cannot take the phenomenal world and remove it from consciousness. Again, going to the dream state. If I dream, I'm in bed with a horse. When I wake up in the morning, thank God my wife is not the horse. You cannot remove it from the dream. All phenomena, without exception, is mind. All situations, without exception, are mind. And the substratum, the light of awareness, is never changed or altered by it. All right, good place to stop. What's our next verse number?
43.
43. We'll stop here then. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Hari Om Sri Guru Pyo Namaha. Hari Om. Om. This is difficult teaching in this section. If you're having difficulty with it, just put it on the shelf and be open to the idea that things are not quite as solid as you think they are. And be open to the idea that you're just full of opinions which you think are the truth. Just don't take them quite so seriously. It's a good place to start. All right, thank you all.
Thank you, Jim.